encourage you to listen very carefully to what the lawyers have to say. Since the state has the burden of proof, they get to go first. After the defense closing arguments, the state will have the final word in what is a rebuttal argument. So generally, you may begin your closing arguments.
May I have the screen here?
Yes, sir.
16-year-old Stanley Freeman could not outrun the bullets fired by those two. You heard his dad testify on the first day of his trial. While watching the school video, seeing his son for the last time running out of Austin East High School. And you heard Mr. Freeman explain the reason why his son was running was because he was running to get home, to change, to go to work. And instead, he ran right into the firing squad. Now you've heard from 20 witnesses, and you will be presented with over 400 pieces of evidence. And what you're going to be asked to do is to evaluate those witnesses and look at that evidence and determine whether or not there's been sufficient proof beyond a reasonable doubt to find these two guilty of these charges. Now the judge has just finished about 25 to 35 minutes worth of instructions. So this is what we're talking about: premeditated intentional murder using a Glock 45 caliber gap pistol and an AR-762 fired from that blue Nissan that these two were in. They fired those weapons at Stan Freeman's Honda Accord. And the ballistics show that Stan was killed by one of those 762 projectiles. So what does it mean to be premeditated? Well, the judge gave you the definition. This is what you heard as evidence of their premeditation. They had to load that clip in that AR rifle. They had to load the magazine of the Glock 45 caliber handgun. They had to ride around with those weapons around Austin East High School. They had to chase Stan Freeman down the streets to the place on Tarleton Avenue where they pointed their guns at him, and as he was passing, opened fire, emptied the entire magazine of that Glock and those 762 projectiles in his car. You saw the pictures afterwards. That car was fired at from the front, from the side, and from the back. Now, felony murder, again, the judge has given you that explanation. What is aggravated child abuse? The judge gave you those instructions. Stan was 16. There was no accident here. They knowingly shot at him and emptied their weapons into the car of the 16-year-old. We told you in the very beginning, during jury selection and in openings, that this case was about circumstantial evidence because there were no eyewitnesses. What is circumstantial evidence? It's all this evidence, those over 400 items and the 20 witnesses that are going to give you clues in an indirect way about what happened. You can probably tell from my lack of East Tennessee accent that I wasn't from here. I'm from a place that we measure snow by the foot instead of by the inch, in the Tug Hill Plateau of central New York. So this is the example I want to give you about circumstantial evidence. Some of you may be familiar with this sculpture just up the street near Gay Street. So the example is that I went to bed and the rowing man was not covered with snow. And I woke up the next morning and the rowing man was covered with snow. I can then, using circumstantial evidence, conclude that it must have snowed overnight because I didn't witness a snowfall. That's what this circumstantial evidence case is about. Nobody came forward to give eyewitness testimony about the shooting. But these 400 pieces of evidence and these 20 witnesses can certainly tell you what those circumstantial evidence proves. I want to go over something. You've seen the videos and you've seen the pictures of these two posing with those murder weapons. You've heard from the forensic tech about the fingerprint that was found on the Nissan mirror. The weapons that were confiscated at their residence. The shell casings, and remember, the shell casings that Sergeant Dalton talked about, all 11 of those 45 caliber Gap spent shell casings, 2 of them from the Nissan and 9 of them from the scene, all match that gun. And we know that that gun fired those bullets. And the same thing applies for the 7.62 shell casings. All of those casings match that gun. We have the ring video showing the car going by, and we have the school security video showing the circling of the vehicles. That's them. That's them posing with those guns. That's the ring video of Stan's car going by just before the shots are being fired. What else do we have? The cell phones. The cell phone tracking. Both of them tracking in the same direction at the same time that these things took place. How about the messaging from the cell phones? Indicating that they were inquiring about getting 7.62 ammo. How about the app of Find Your Car? If you remember, the testimony suggested that there's an app in that phone that that person indicated where the Nissan was left on Washington. How about the cell phone videos? After the fact, when they're posing with the murder weapons again, they switch into the Ford Fusion. We took great strides to point that out, that Fusion with the red stitching, with them in it, with those weapons after the fact. What other circumstantial evidence do we have? The cell phones had pictures of Stan after the fact. Ask yourself, why would they have that in their phone? They have in their phone the crash scene video that was uploaded to Facebook. Why would they keep that on their phone? And how about the Facebook post from Stan's math teacher? Why would they have that on their phone? It's their trophies, isn't it? This is them proud of what they did. The judge instructed you about the concept of criminal responsibility. What it means, and we talked about this in jury selection and in openings, what it means to be responsible for someone else's actions. The best way that I can describe this is the team effort results in team credit. That's what criminal responsibility is. So you have the quarterback, his offense, you've got the defensive lineman, and you've got the coach. That's your team. That's the team right there. These two defendants are the team. And they're responsible for each other's actions of discharging in the direction, through the car, front, side, and back, into Stan Freeman's car, killing him. It's been a long week. What we've done with all of this evidence and all of this testimony a journey to the truth. And just like a compass, you can count on a compass always pointing true north. And if you rely upon your compass, your common sense, your understanding of the judge's directions, and all the evidence that we presented, you will find a destination. And that destination should result in your finding a verdict of guilty for both defendants of all the charges. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get lost wandering off into the weeds. Don't get lost by the argument of the defense that, well, there's no DNA. Well, there's only one fingerprint. There's no eyewitnesses. You don't have to wander off into the woods to get lost if you follow all of these circumstantial evidence that points you in only one direction. And that direction is these two are guilty of all of these charges. And if you follow your compass, that's where you will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.